Hi everybody, it's Diana with Stamping with Di. Welcome to my YouTube channel and this week's Teach Me Tuesdays episode 239. And I'm going to do a fun no-line watercolor card with you using the Garden Meadow stamp set. And I had so much fun. So my friend Karen Barber was here over the weekend and that was one of the things she wanted me to show her was no line watercoloring. So it was fun. So we had fun with that. And so after I finished my project, I'm like, I have to do that for a video. I know I've done no line watercoloring before, but I haven't done it with this stamp set. And it turned out so fun. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So if you are new to my channel, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Diana, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm in Santan Valley, Arizona. So I'm so glad that you're joining me today. So if you are new, I'm in the chat room watching the live premiere. So if you have any questions at all, head on over there, and that's where I'll be. If you're watching the replay, then just leave a comment below, and then YouTube will let me know, and then I can reach out to you. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to spin the camera. So close your eyes just for a second. And I'll get everything adjusted. Okay, so hold on. Okay, so the stamp set I'm going to be using is the Garden Meadow. I had this sitting on my desk while I work on the mini masterpieces for the month of September, so I can get those out. And so when Karen was here, I was like, this would be a great one to teach you because floral is very easy to learn on. And I love anything like that you can add rust and all that kind of stuff too. So it was totally perfect. So that's what we're going to use. Now I'm using the watercolor paper that's in the catalog, and I've just trimmed this down so I don't have that super big piece of paper. Now one thing that's a little bit different, and I had figured it out after I did my thing, was I wish I've kind of put a color wash on here before I started. So I am going to do that this time. And what the colors I'm using are just our regular ink pads. And these are the colors. So I've got Gray Granite, Pool Party, Pebbled Path, Cajun Craze, Old Olive, Poppy Parade, Azure Afternoon, Lemon Lime Twist. Now, if I had all these pads open all over my desk, it would take up a lot of space. So what I've done is I just have like a little plastic paint tray. You can grab these at your craft store. And all I've done is I've just put a little bit of refill in them. And then I just used like a chalk marker. And I've just kind of wrote like Pool Party, Pebbled, Old Olive, Poppy, Azure, Crumb, Gray Granite, Lemon Lime Twist, and hang on a minute. What was these? Oh, Cajun. And then that way I kind of know what colors these are, because right now they just look, it's hard to tell like one's from the other. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my I want to call aqua painter, but I know water painter, and I want to. So this is also a silicone. We have our silicone pads or whatever, and I just cut it into 4, and these are just like a little makeup sponge or whatever, little makeup round, cotton round, and that's what I use to kind of keep my water painter under control. All right. Okay, so let's see here. So I want to take a bit of Pool Party. I'm just going to kind of add some water to it. I want to make it fairly wet. Move it over into here so I can really get that diluted. Okay. And I just want to put a little bit of a wash on my paper. So I'm kind of squeezing as I go. So if I wet my paper, it will allow me to add that color on here a lot easier, and it will be nice and soft instead of it being really, really dark. Now, when you add another color to the watercolor paper, you want to let this dry. So you can just air dry it. You can use your heat gun. You know, it's totally up to you. So I'm just going to kind of go like this so it will dry. I should have did one ahead of time, but it is what it is. Because what you want to make sure is that it's dry. Now I have, it doesn't take too long to dry on the watercolor paper. If this is wet, and then I go and add my old olive where I'm going to put the grass, it would just blend out. So I'm going to add a little bit more water because I want to put a little bit more of my pool party. We'll see how that just pools out. So I'm able to get a variety of pool. And it's just a little darker down here where it will meet the grass. All right, so I'm just going to, I can use my cotton round to soak up some of that wet, just to speed that up a little bit. So watercoloring is not a fast, you know, like you don't want to rush it. You want to just have fun with it. And then we used to have Sahara sand, so I'll just gab while I'm doing this. So we used to have Sahara sand, and that was always the one that I would gravitate to stamp for the watercolor, no line watercolor. But we don't have Sahara sand anymore. Now, when it's just me, myself, and I stamping, I still use Sahara sand. But I want to use something that you can get in my store in case you don't have Sahara sand. If you do, then you can use Sahara sand. All right. So this is pretty good. It's still a little damp, but it's not super, super wet. So I think we'll be fine. Now, we do have the new basic beige. And let me show you. I'm going to bring this over here. So if you use basic beige, what happens is when you're coloring, as soon as the other inks hit that basic beige, it doesn't hide the line, because that basic beige it's like this magical pad. So this was all stamped with basic beige, but once I used that gray granite, it changed that to gray granite. But yet up here, when I did the lemon lime twist, it changed that basic beige and kind of like a darker lemon lime. So I didn't really want that look for this technique. So I'm not going to throw this away because I do like how it looks, and I'll finish it another time. But so I just wanted to, bring that to your attention, just in case, you go, well, how come you don't use the basic beige? Because I do like that color, but if I want it to be a truly no line watercolor, the basic beige isn't necessarily, the best. All right, so let me see here. I just want to make sure. All right, so I'm going to clean my water brush. And I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to add a little water like I did before. I'm going to kind of stay away from that pool party. And I want to find my old olive. Here we go. I want to get a little old olive. And I want to add that. And I'm just kind of making it streaky so that we have a little variety of grass colors. And then I want it to kind of be really dark towards the back, because that horizon is darker as it meets the horizon. Okay, so that is good. So I'm going to let that dry. And then as soon as it's dry, we will stamp. Okay, so I finally got tired of waiting. So I got my heat gun out. All right, so I'm just using my heat gun to dry that. And then it kind of buckles a little bit. Just flip it over. And as it dries, it lays a little flatter. I think that's pretty good. All right, so I'm just going to unplug that so I don't forget. All right. So if I was making a bunch of these, I would let this really dry and then it will flatten out. So I'm just kind of forcing it to be flat. You can put a book on it, you know, something heavy as well. Good. All right. So now let's get our image. So we have our whatchamacallit, our wheelbarrow. I couldn't even think of the name of it. All right, so we've got our wheelbarrow. I'm just going to make sure it's clean. So I'm not bringing any other color on there. Just because we were playing with it this weekend. Looks good. Try that. All right, so I'm going to use gray granite instead of the Sahara to stamp my wheelbarrow. And I want it kind of over, you know, over here a little bit so I have room for greeting or whatever. Okay. So I'm just going to ink this up. I'm going to have a piece of paper over here. And see how dark that is. Not too bad. All right, but I'm going to bring it here. So I stamped it off. And I'm going to put it up kind of at an angle. I want my wheel to be more on the grass than that, whatever that thing is. Okay, so I can see, because you still need to have the image on there, right? It's not like you know, or you might as well just draw it yourself if you don't have the image on there. So anyway, so I did stamp it off to make that gray granite be a little bit lighter. So I have my little, whatchamacallit, my little pad and my fun little whatever, paint palette. And so now we're just going to start coloring. So I need to find my gray granite. And the secret to no line watercoloring or any kind of watercoloring is you want to start light first. So I'm just going to come over here to my gray granite. And I'm just going to bring it up here because I've got colors in all my little thingies. I'm just going to kind of make it be lightish. Okay. Make sure you can see that. Then I'm just going to come over and I'm just going to start coloring. And I want this whole thing to be colored with that diluted gray granite. And that's why you want this little sponge, which will help you control your colors as well. You don't want them too dark. And what's nice about the no line is you can kind of alter things. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. All right, so that looks good. So it's got my fun little wheelbarrow. And I'm just going to add a little bit more. Now I'm going to go up into my gray granite where it's a little more solid. And I'm just going to put a little bit on the tip. And we're just going to put a little bit underneath these flowers because it would be dark underneath there. And it's still kind of wet, so it's allowing me to blend that color in. Still a little wet, so it lets me, kind of add that darker. Now I also want to make a little bit of rust. I want to make my wheelbarrow have some rust on it. So I'm going to introduce Cajun Craze to my wheelbarrow. Now by doing that, I need to wet my wheelbarrow a little bit, because if I just simply add the Cajun Craze to it, it's going to be really solid and it's just going to sit there, and that watercolor paper is just going to like soak it right in, and it's going to just, you're not going to like it. So what you want to do is we want to add a little water to where we're going to add that Cajun Craze. Then I'm just going to come over, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that Cajun, and I'm just softening it right there. It's not as strong, and I'm going to add it to my wheelbarrow. And because that's paper's wet, it lets me add it softer than just this big, stark, like Cajun. So I'm going to put a little bit here too. So, because I just love adding that rusty kind of look to my wheelbarrow. All right. So we're just going to let it sit. All right. So I do want to take some, where's my pebbled? Here we go. So my pebbled's over here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of bring it up into here, where it's a little softer. And I'm just going to control with my sponge. I want some pebble on my wheelbarrow, whatever these are, the arms, the body of the wheelbarrow, like that metal stuff. And then you just want to make sure that this part right here is dry. You don't want anything to be wet when you're adding another color, because it will pull into that color. So I'm just basically kind of tracing it, because I'm still using that drawing. I'm just tracing it, and then the lines just kind of go away. And then we're going to do our arm here. But personally, I wish this arm was bigger, because when I did this wheelbarrow the very first time, I thought that was a flower. I wasn't really sure what it was. But what it is it's the other arm. But I wish it was a little longer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my pebbled, and I'm just going to extend that out. Just like that. So now that's going to be a little bit longer, and then I'll put like a little tip on it or whatever. Okay, so we have our pebbled. So that's just kind of drying. I want to get my lemon lime twist. So I'm going to switch this guy because he's getting pretty dark. So I have a whole bunch of them. I buy them by the box. Because I use it for my fingernails too, so they don't go to waste. All right, so I'm just going to clean that. Now I want to add some lemon lime twist. So here's my lemon lime twist. So again, I'm just going to add some water to it. Just soften that. I'm going to put lemon lime twist in the center of my wheelbarrow there. And also these leaves. So just make sure everything's dry. Just kind of touch with your fingers and you'll be able to tell. I'm going to put some lemon lime twist in my leaves. So again, I'm starting it out pretty light so that I can go back in and add the darker layers. So if you want more flowers, you can add more, because you're kind of almost like being your own artist with this. So again, this is lemon lime, and I'm just trying to kind of filling in the areas where there would be leaves amongst those flowers. All right. Now, once this is dry, you want to make sure it's dry, because if I just keep adding lemon lime twist to where it's wet, it'll just keep pulling into that same shape, and it will just keep getting darker and darker, and you won't get the lights and the darks. So you want to make sure it's dry. So this is dry. So now I can go in where it's a little bit darker and add some lemon lime twist from that darker area. So now I've got like a darker spot. Just playing with it in my paint palette. I also want to add a little dark here and there in the flowers, but I am going to add some old olive as well. But flowers are so forgiving, and it's such a great way to learn this technique. So I'm just adding a little dark here and there. Okay. And then I'm going to grab some old olive. So where was my old olive? Right here. So sometimes it's easier to do it with the ink pads, but I have a lot of colors going on, so I'm just move that up a little bit. So I'm just using my paint palette. All right, so let's see. That's a little bit too dark. Soften that a little bit. I just want to add a little dark in there. Still a little wet, so it's able to pull that old olive out. That looks pretty good. See those flowers happening. Okay. So now we're going to go back to, because I kind of move around, right? Like I kind of go, oh, here and there and here and there, because I want things to have time to dry. So then I go back to where I was, so that things are dry already. All right, so we have crumb. So I'm going to come into my crumb, and I'm going to put a little bit of water in there. And I'm just going to make the handle brown. So see, now we have like a bigger handle. My flowers should be dry, but I'm just going to give them a little bit more time. So while they are drying, I'm going to come over to my pebbled. Here we are. So this is my pebbled. I want to make it a little darker. So I'm just going in here to grab some more. And I'm going to make my tire pebbled. Nice and dark. So pebbled is what I kind of use for my black. I'm just kind of tracing the drawing, adding that my wheel. Nice dark. Cool, right? All right, let's clean that off. That's pretty dark. All right, so my flowers should be good now. All right, now what I'm going to do is azure. So I have my azure, which is right here. Let's spin that around. It's that beautiful blue. I'm going to add some water in there. And we're going to do our azure flowers. Adding those up and around. Got our azure flowers sticking out of the flower bed. All right, so then I want to get a little bit darker this time. A little bit. I just want to make sure it's really dry before I go in there with my dark. And I'm just going to go tap, 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 kind of tap it in. Just softening that a little bit. Love it. Okay. Now let's let that dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to come over and where's my pebble? Pebbled. All right. So I'm going to take my pebbled and we're basically going to kind of use this as like a line, like a liner. I'm just going to take that. We're just going to go around. And I'm just going to use it kind of as a liner, just to add a little dark, like where the sun would hit, you know. Now, if you're worried like, oh, I couldn't do that, you can also just use, you could use your Pebbled Path Stampin' Right marker if you want it to be a little softer. This is just the basic black, and you could do the same thing. You just come in there and just lightly add, because then you'd have more control over that line if you want it to be like finer. Okay? Like my wheel. Just want to clean up my edge a little bit so I can just take my Stampin' Right and just add. Even though this is pebbled, I'm using the basic black because I put that pebbled on there pretty dark, right? All right, so let's see. This should be good and dry. Let's toss this one again. I just really squeeze that and get that clean. All right, so now I want to add some poppy. So whenever I watercolor, I always use red colors last because if anything is wet, like you've missed something, you're going to pull that color in. So I'm just going to grab some poppy, add some water there, get it pretty diluted, and we're just going to come in here and add our red flowers. And just see how nice that water painter just holds that color. So I didn't have to keep going in there and adding more poppy because it just keeps, keeps that in there. All right, so we're going to let that dry before we go in and add any more details to it. All right, so let's see here. So I'm thinking. While we're waiting, I'm going to put a little bit of grass. Where's my old olive? This is my old olive. I'm just going to darken this a little bit. Just taking my tip. I'm just, just kind of adding so my grass has a little bit of extra colors. All right. So see how it just adds a little bit of something, something. Now I'm going to take this and I'm also going to go like this. I'm just adding like little sprigs of grass. And this stamp has images too. You could totally just stamp other images. I'm just kind of going easy just by adding some little sprigs of grass here and there. They were so busy picking the flowers that they didn't mow the grass. All right, that looks all right. Not too bad. So we're just going to play with our wheelbarrow a little bit. So I need my gray granite. I'm going to put a little bit gray granite, a little bit there. And they always look different. Like I could never make one look identical. I tried, especially when you're doing this, right? Because we are, you know, we're kind of altering it from its original drawing. So get a little bit of pebbled. There we go. So now I can see that the base of that a little bit better. And I'm going to get a little bit more Cajun. This almost looks too pink. I want it to look a little more rusty. Yeah, that looks a little more rusty than before. Okay. So now my poppy should be dry. So then I can go in here with my azure. And I'm going to add a little darker azure. And I'm just dot, dot, dot. It would be darker, down where it was down in here, it would be darker. And I'm just dotting it. See the flowers, kind of come to life that way. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my poppy. All right, I need to change my, because this one's empty, so I just have another one at the ready. So I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to make sure that this is dry so that I can come in with the poppy and add more. If it's wet, then it's just going to drag that poppy all over the place and I won't get highlights and lowlights. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the azure, and I'm just going to just dot, dot, dot. Use your little cotton round to control how much wet is on your brush. See how pretty that is? Let me bring that up. See how beautiful all those flowers are in there? I want to let that dry a little bit before I go in and do anything else. So I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to take my old olive. I'm just going to put a little old olive here and there. It allows me to be a little bit more precise where my dark is. I'll do the same thing with my lemon line. Just because these are a little more concentrated. Go in there and add a little bit more. Now you just have, you know, a little bit more control over it. So I know it's not going to be too see how that just kind of lit it up a little bit. All right, so let's do this. I also want to, because I could play with this for hours. All right, but you don't have hours, right? All right, so let's bring my pebble back over. And I'm going to use it like a liner. So I just grabbed my pebbled. And I just brought some of that more solid. And I want to use it like a liner. And I'm going to go up underneath here. The wheelbarrow would be there. I'm just kind of using it to kind of emphasize some of these places where I was. You'll see that just kind of makes the wheelbarrow stand out just a little bit more. My phone is a ringing. So same thing here. And I'm going to use my gel pen as well. You know me and my gel pen. All right, so that looks good. I want to mess with it too much more. That looks really, really good. Okay, I just want to make sure it's good and dry before I start adding my gel pen. All right. Now you could also use the white craft pad. So let's bring that over because you might not have a white gel pen. So let's use our white craft ink. Now we can do the same thing. This is basically like a paint. Let me make sure that's good and clean. And we're going to put some highlights with our white craft. So we're just going to come over, we're going to pick this up. We're going to put a little white dots here and there. Our centers of our flowers. A little bit on our wheelbarrow. And I just kind of use my finger just to soften it a little bit. See how adding that little bit of white makes it look super cool. Just like you do the gel pen, we're just using the craft. But it takes longer to dry. So just be, just be aware where you put your little lines so you don't brush up against it. I think that looks pretty good. I like the water painters because you've got three. So you have that nice little skinny one that you can almost use like a pen. Oh, where else do I need it? Just let it dry really well. And we can use our heat gun to speed it up as well. And then as it dries, it's just going to be less white than the gel pen. Like it will soak in a little bit more as it dries compared to the gel pen. I love just adding that little bit of white, don't you? And what we can also do is we're going to take our black and we're going to add some little black dots as well. Our flowers would have some little, maybe some little black dots as well on our centers of our flowers. And it just helps emphasize them because this is pretty freeform, I guess would be the word, compared to, you know, what it looked like when we stamped it. You know, because when we stamped it, you know, you had all of this. Here, what I'll do is I'll stamp it on a piece of paper so you can see. When we stamped it, and I'll go solid gray granite so we can, instead of stamping it off, just so we can compare what I mean by free form. See what I mean? Like the stamped one, you really see like the definition of the leaves and the stems and all that kind of stuff and the round of the flowers. But when we do the no line watercolor, we're able to make it look more like a watercolor painting because we're just using the lines as a reference. We're not having to stick with them. So here's the one I did when Karen was here. So that's what I mean about, you know, not being able to make them look identical if you tried. So this one I did, my blue's a little darker. My poppy was a little bit darker. This one we used the ink pad instead of the paint palette. So I find that I was able to dilute because I had so many colors. Because usually, if I didn't have so many colors, I would have poppy, like a solid poppy here, and then next to it, I'd have a diluted poppy. You know, but I filled this up with all the colors, so that's why I was like pulling them out and making quite a mess. Where this one we used the ink pads, but we had ink pads like everywhere, and for the video, I just didn't want that to be the case. But so anyway, so yeah, so they look a little bit different because I really started out those colors really light compared to here. Because here they were a little more darker from the get-go because I had them in the paint palette. All right, so let me say, see you later, alligator. So yeah, so I love working with I love doing stuff like this. Like I love just sitting and coloring. And then I decide later what I'm going to do with it. I'll probably cut it out with like a die, put it on a card. I just love, just, or maybe I'll frame it because it just looks so cool. Anyways. All right, so I'm going to say see you later, alligator. And I will see you Friday for my dice shorts. That will be at 3 o'clock, Arizona time, same channel. Don't forget about the stamp sale. It's only 3 days, so it ends on the 9th. So make sure you grab all that you want. If you have any questions at all, make sure you holler. Alrighty? Okay, I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye for now.